Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this live chat that I'm doing. Yes, so just quickly to let you know, I'm sitting in the dark here in Africa. We're having load shedding right now, so that's why it's a bit dark in the background. But luckily, I do have a battery-powered light, so I do apologize for any darkness around me or light going up and down. It's just part of living in Africa. Hi, Matthias. Okay, hi, Javi. Hi, Rodriguez. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly invite Nigel, who is our special guest for tonight. So let me see, there's Nigel, requests, and we shall add him. All right. So he is the founder of Past Preservers, which is the company that produces most of the documentaries on ancient Egypt that you would have seen on TV. See, here's loading. Hello, Nigel.
Hello. Hi
How
there.
are you?
I'm trying to get a good light, but I don't know which way I should do this. Sideways?
Have light.
No. I'm in the garden, so if the signal is terrible, I can go inside.
It should be fine. We're
Only get the top of
currently
my
having
head.
load shedding here in South Africa, so I'm sitting in a completely dark house with a battery-powered light. So, hi.
Not sure why it's so close, but there you go.
So let me just
Does
invite
it
some
doesn't seem, you
people.
seem distant.
Hi, hieroglyphics artist. Hi. Yes. So as I was saying, Nigel is our special guest for tonight. Look at the garden.
So does it matter which way I do the camera or not? Horizontal, vertical?
You can do it like that, but I think like portrait is better because then you can all see you.
You see the top of my head. I think that's about it. No, that's like the top of that's the shed.
Yes.
See the shed. Oh, the sun's come out at least.
No, luckily. Hi, hieroglyphics
Cool.
artist.
Let me
Hi, Shivan. Okay. Hi, Sandy. Thanks for joining, everyone. Yes, so as I was saying, Nigel is the founder of Past Preservers, which is a company that basically, if I've got this correct, you match experts with documentary producers and produce some of these amazing documentaries that we see on National Geographic, History, which it is in the title, Past Preservers. So why don't you explain to us, Nigel, why you founded Past Preservers and what it's all about?
Well, actually, that would take us back. Can you hear me clearly, by the way?
Yes, I can.
If I'm this far away. That would take us back about 12 years now, when I was working in the Valley of the Kings. I was incredibly lucky to get a job working for Dr. Kent Weeks of the Theban Mapping Project, while I was doing my master's. In fact, I was doing my master's at UCL part-time, and over 3 years. And in between, after the first year, I think, he offered me a job there because he was doing the site management plan for the Valley of the Kings. So I was there for 6 years in the end. We worked on that project. But the idea for Past Preservers was kind of sort of seeded, I suppose, at that time, because we were doing a lot of work with the media, myself and Kelly Krause, who was the co-founder of the company.
Yes.
So the producers would come to film in the Valley of the Kings, and often Dr. Weeks was too busy to talk to them, and apart from his interview and stuff, so we would help them choose the correct location to shoot their video. We would find them different experts on the ground to talk to, and they would take us out for a beer and a meal at the end of the day. And that was about it, really. We never really thought of it as a business. We thought of it as a sort of, courtesy to the producers that came along. But then when our contract was coming to an end in the Valley of the Kings, we were desperate to find ways to stay in Egypt. And we both briefly went back to the UK and took corporate jobs, which we hated, and decided while we were in the UK one Christmas, we cooked up this idea that actually we could provide
Harrods,
this sort
I believe, if I'm correct.
Sorry?
So saying, where was that? At Harrods that you...
Oh God, no! That was a very long time. That was a different person, a different era. That was 20 years ago. I worked at Harrods I was an accountant. Sorry?
Facebook stalking. We can find all sorts of info.
Yeah, no, I was an accountant for 15 to 18 years in London before I went into archaeology and started to study Egypt. So. Yeah, no, that was a long time. We both I worked for Atkins, which was a heritage consultant, one of the world's biggest. And I didn't want to do that. I realized that one of the main reasons I'd left my work as an accountant was to escape working in a cubicle and not do that kind of, that kind of work. So as I said, we cooked up the plan for past preservers. We thought we can work alongside the fixers, and that's what we did. We worked alongside Rami Rahmani, who's now a world-class filmmaker himself and DOP and lives in Los Angeles. He was then based in Cairo. Him and his father ran Egypt Fixer.
Cousin or the godson, I believe, of Zahi Hawass.
I don't think it's, I mean, Arab godsons are kind of not quite like how we would think them. It's kind of family friends.
Okay.
It's but his father knows Zahi very, very well. Yeah, they were I believe they were in the SCA together years and years ago before his father left to start to become a fixer. So we thought, we can assist them. And our proposal was we went to them and said, look, we can do the creative side of things. We can find the experts. We can help you with the stories. And if you introduce us to the producers, then we'll introduce you to producers, vice versa type thing. So that's how it started.
Okay, great. And I mean, Past Preservers does such an amazing job by... Oh, electricity's back.
Light.
Yes, anyway, Past Preservers does such an amazing job, as the title says, preserving the past. Through these documentaries, you guys are able to help educate people about history. And I mean, that must be a really nice feeling when a documentary goes out on TV and you know that millions and thousands of people are going to be watching it. And you produce that, and you're actually contributing something to history.
Yeah, it's been an amazing ride, really. We've had we just literally last week at one point had the whole evening, like from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock on Nat Geo was our project. Oh, wow. On Discovery Channel on the Saturday night for another 4 hours. There was projects that we worked on. And when I say our projects as well, we have to give a caveat to that. I mean, we work on these projects. We are not the producers. We're not the production companies, but we work alongside them. They're our partners. We consider ourselves, part of the team that makes them together. We tend to do everything, depending on the project. Some things we just find experts. Others we help with stories. Some we find hosts. Some we do development work. It really varies a lot. But as I said, it's been 12 years and now 70 projects have made it to screen that we've worked on, and probably about the 50 or so that didn't make it to screen, because a lot of production work is development,
Yeah. I just have to quickly say hi, Yosra. She's part of Past Preservers, so hi.
Hello there.
One of the presenters, and she was also very kindly in the Nefertari film that you helped with.
Yeah, great. Yeah, there was some cool Egyptologists there.
It was a big lineup.
I mean, that's what we try to work on different types of projects. We like to work on, we've worked on film, we've worked on independent projects, obviously projects for the big networks as well. Really, we're looking for opportunities all the time for our experts, because we have, 1,300 experts on the books. So not all of them are going to get TV work, right?
Yeah.
So when opportunities come along, we like to offer them that chance. So we work with Viking cruise ships as well
Oh, wow.
to provide speakers. And when that kind of world gets back together, then that's a nice gig. It's actually one of the only gigs that we do that's not paid, but you get a free cruise for you and a friend or companion or whatever. So it works out quite a good deal for a few lectures. And we work with a talking agency who does Babble Talks in London, that does at the moment virtual talks, but sometimes does them in pubs and other places for people who've just had young babies.
Yeah.
It's like a sort of TED Talks for young couples.
Yeah. So let me quickly say hi, Fatima. Hi, Percy. We've got some more people joining. Yes. So, apart from Egypt, I know you visited many other historical sites. What site, apart from Egypt itself, that you visited that you really felt inspired by?
I mean, here actually locally, where I live in the Lake District, there's a stone circle here called Castlerigg Stone Circle.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite in the world. I actually think it's better than Stonehenge and better than Avebury, but it's not known very well, apart from people who either live in the area or people who come particularly to see it. It's a beautiful site, and the outer henge is actually, for years, the archaeologists were looking for the outer henge, and actually they discovered that in fact there is no outer henge. The actual mountains that surround it are considered the henge. So
wow.
It's in an unbelievable landscape. It's phenomenal.
It's not like Stonehenge where it's got the wall, the inner wall, and then the inner sanctuary. It doesn't have that.
It has, but it's a lot less, and the stones are obviously they don't have the sills on them. They're not. It's much smaller, but because of the landscape, it's more dramatic.
Yeah. Someone
said Yosef says she's been there. Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It's a magical place. And also, unlike Stone. Sorry, yeah, there was a delay. Yeah, sorry. Unlike Stonehenge as well, you can get up and close to the stones. You can walk among them. There's sheep going grazing and that kind of thing. So it's not like you're kept away. So it's actually a nice place to visit from that point. The sort of sense of place,
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, you've been to Egypt. I don't know. How many times have you been to Egypt?
I don't really count, but I mean, I've been at least once every year for the last 20 years. So 2 or 3 times probably. Some years. When I was at college, I went a lot more, went back and forward. But then, at one point I lived there for sort of non-stop, almost for 6 years. So I'd only come back to the UK for Christmas and things like that. And actually the most amazing year there was I was there, the longest time I was there in kind of without leaving was for about 18 months just after the revolution.
Oh, wow.
And that was pretty amazing time. So yeah, I've seen Egypt from many different angles. Very.
Yeah, it must have been very empty, no tourists.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I actually prefer Egypt without them. I mean, I live in downtown Cairo. When I'm there, I don't really go to places that are lots of tourists. And actually, I kind of almost dread sometimes being dragged to the pyramids, by visitors and stuff. I'd rather go on my own and with others. But
the pyramids is not somewhere I enjoy visiting. So.
No, if I want to go to the pyramids, I obviously take people to Giza, but then I insist that they go to Dashur or Saqqara and actually see the pyramids in the natural landscape where they'd understand them more. But in the main, I don't even, really go out of downtown Cairo when I'm there and stuff. So that's where I like. So you don't see a lot of tourists there, apart from at the museum, of course.
Of course, yeah. And how did you become interested in history, archaeology, Egyptology, because I know that you have studied Egyptology and archaeology. How did that interest come about?
Well, when I was at school, I was really interested in history, particularly. I have one of my oldest books is a book actually on Giza, the Pyramid and the Sphinx. One of my aunties bought me when I was very young. but I was good at numbers. That was my kind of curse at school. So the thing was, I love numbers, I love whatever. So, but the schools pushed me to do that, to do accountancy, to do not, that kind of work. So I ended up dropping.
Something practical.
Yeah, so I ended up dropping history. I kept geography, and what we used to do, they had this subject in England called environmental studies, which I loved. But I lost history and stuff along the way. So when I went to visit Egypt the first time in '97, on a Nile cruise, in fact, from Luxor to Aswan, that's when I really got into it and came back to England and decided that I would do some studying. So I went to Birkbeck, the sort of evening school, I would say, of UCL, basically the adult education part of UCL. And I did a course with a wonderful professor called Suzanne Boytus, who I'm still really good friends with. And she pushed me to do the essays, to do the work, and to get into it. And actually, she was the one who, when I was thinking and finished that, and I was thinking about what to do next, she was like, well, if you don't like your work and you want to change and stuff, why not go back to university? And really, without that encouragement, I don't think I'd have done it. Yeah. So yeah, she really changed my life.
Yeah. It's interesting because I hear from a lot of Egyptologists, that they got into history and Egyptology because it was something that was there from a long time ago. It was like a child thing. So it's very interesting to hear that it seems to be a recurring trend. It's not like someone just got bored and thought, okay, I'll just study Egyptology or archaeology.
Yeah, it does tend to be. You do hear it from a lot of archaeologists as well. And I think, if you look at kids, I mean, sometimes I do school talks and things where my sister teaches, and, the kids are crazy about Egypt and dinosaurs, right? That's the two things that most kids go nuts about. So there's always a new generation who are going to be interested in Egypt. That's why it is, the phenomenal draw that it is.
Yeah. And something, for myself, I have so many favorite places in Egypt, like Saqqara, Abu Simbel, obviously, but Ramesseum is my absolute favorite temple. What is your favorite place, favorite site in Egypt?
Well, I mean, the Valley of the Kings is obviously really special to me because of all the work and all the time we spent there. But also, I do love Saqqara. It's a very nice place, and particularly where the Apis bulls, that place is just, yeah, that's just unbelievable. It's incredible. It's like being in a New York subway station or something. It's just, particularly vaulted ceilings. I love vaulted ceilings. Yeah, it's phenomenal. The size, the scale of everything. Also the animal necropolis around there. We filmed quite a few times, particularly in the monkeys and stuff, and that is just phenomenal. The scale of it, the numbers, and we don't really know the full extent of it yet, and they haven't even found the farms that are connected to it and for breeding the millions of animals that were buried there. So that's a whole new world to be investigated.
Yeah, and we're talking about the mummies in the catacombs, animal mummies in the catacombs. Fairly recently, it's been discovered, obviously, I'm sure you know as well, that those mummies are not thousands of animals that were killed. It would be just if, take a feather from one bird and a bone from something else and just wrap it up to look like that. I find it very interesting that they made these dummy mummies.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting theories on that though as well. Obviously, I mean, the obviously part of something can represent the whole, and the kind of magical sense of it, but also the corruption side of it. I mean, if they were breeding millions of animals from pilgrims that weren't allowed to take them home, they deposited them there, then particularly the high-end animals that took a while to breed, there must have been a very a tendency to sort of we can put one leg in and no one's actually going to know, are they, what's in the mummy. And I think there's wasn't there something discovered about an inquiry into it anyway at one point, I think by one of the pharaohs. But, you know, so I think, yeah, anything like that, that's such a large scale project that is going to be incredibly lucrative for the priests that were involved. So I think maybe there's a magical element to it, but I think there's also a part of, you know, ripping off the tourists.
Yeah, but, you know, you produced so many documentaries. I think you mentioned something like 70 documentaries. You had a part in those shows.
Yeah.
We don't usually see you in front of the camera. But I do remember back in like 2007, I think I was like 14. There was a series called Chasing. There was a series called Chasing Mummies on the History Channel. And you were the producer on that, and we see you quite a lot. How was that experience working on that show?
The talking head at the beginning, because me and Kelly used to do them to start with. That was, you know, but then we got too wrapped up in actually running the business. So, you know, in the end, we would put other people to do it, and we would only really step in if they couldn't find someone to do it, you know. So that's how we ended up sort of less on camera eventually, because we were producing and we just didn't have time to do those roles. But the Chasing Mummies thing was phenomenal. I mean, I've done lots of interviews about Chasing Mummies and everything, and I think you know, it was unique. It was intended to be unique. It was trying to do something very different. It ended up being something completely different to what it was meant to be. But you know, history had never done anything like that before. Zahi had certainly never done anything like that before, and in the end, obviously, it tried to be a reality TV show, but there's only a limit that how much, you know, people like in government and stuff will give you access to them. There's also a limit to how much, you know, foreigners can actually do in terms of work, physical involvement in other people's digs and things. So obviously, it became sort of more a sort of, you know, follow Zahi around the country for 9 months show. And part of us being on camera was the fact that they decided that they would break what's called the fourth wall, and you would see the crew and you would see the other side of it. So most of the crew appear on at some point, and it's looking at us trying to make the documentary and the problems we had trying to do it, because that was, you know, very amusing in itself. I mean, Egypt is very difficult to make films in anyway, and as you probably know so well, but it's being there for 9 months with a huge crew and trying to do this, you know, cover the whole country and lots of new discoveries, and also manage these 4 presenters and hosts who, despite what people say, actually did have archaeological and anthropological qualifications. They just weren't allowed to do any because they weren't registered as archaeologists with the Egyptians authorities, sadly. But you know, trying to manage them as well.
That was one of my things when I watched that show, and obviously, you know, a lot of the times when they ask a stupid question, I mean, in archaeology and Egyptology, there are stupid questions. And I remember so many times some of the volunteers or whatever they were called, they used to ask such stupid questions, and I used to think, you know, you guys have studied this and you don't know. But obviously that's for TV, you know, so the audience.
Yeah, and it's for the public, because obviously, you know, yeah, they did know, and obviously the thing is, but if they don't ask the questions, how are the public going to know what's going on?
Exactly.
So, you know, lots of things is just asking Zahi what he's doing, or what the archaeologists are doing, or, you know, where we're going to next. And of course, it became quite a comedy routine that, you know, Zahi would have enough of them, and actually did have enough. It was fed up with them asking these stupid questions. And, you know, I think the comedy element to do it. Oh, hi, Sophia. Yeah, I think the comedy element of it is its strongest part,
Yeah.
and a lot of that was cut out. Sadly, history didn't really like it being funny, but they did leave enough in for it
I
to
loved
be
it.
incredibly funny.
That was one of the shows
Yeah,
that I have to say that inspired me quite a lot. I'd already been watching documentaries and things with Dr. Hawass and Salima Ikram, and then when that show came onto TV, I was like, so cool. So thank you.
it was a pretty exhausting journey. Obviously, it was the longest project we ever did. 9 months non-stop work. So. What's this
I see we
say?
have a
Sharon?
question quick from Sandy. Sandy
Mm-hmm.
asks, share an example of a time you had to gather information from multiple sources. How did you determine which information was relevant? Because Egypt is very complex.
It certainly is. Okay, so actually a recent one we did last year, we were looking at, the pyramid builders and, what is called now this Diary of Mera, the papyrus that was found in Ain Sukna. We had to...
I watched that documentary.
Sorry?
Did you produce that? I watched that documentary.
Oh yeah, we worked on the live. There's been a lot of documentaries about it. This was the live Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates last year, and this was one of the side films to it. They visited the museum and everything. But we were amazingly lucky. We managed to get access to the papyrus and see it in the conservation lab, and obviously, so in that case, we had a wonderful young Egyptologist called Arto, and who's also on our books, and he translated parts of it, and he worked with the conservators there to try and get that information for us, so we can then obviously mention it in the show. But also we wanted to check it with other accounts of to do with the pyramid builders. So obviously the tombs of the pyramid builders, the graffiti in the upper chambers, and see if we could match any names and things like that, because it's always wonderful to be able to name check a person. So we went to the tombs as well. Sadly, we didn't make the connection with a particular person, but it's still such an amazing document, which almost absolutely categorically, proves that there were no slaves involved, that it was Khufu's brother-in-law was the project manager, and, it was, this labor that was collected around the country and worked on the project. And also, because it's accounts as well, this is the thing with things like documentation like that, there's no propaganda value in it. It was never meant to be read by the public. It might be fiddled. It might have claimed for a few more, chickens and whatever from the Pharaoh, but ultimately it can stand up because it doesn't have that public side to it. So it's an amazing document. And also, the people told the archaeologist that was looking in Ain Sukna, for years, that he would never find anything. And not only does he find those boats, those wonderful boats there, but they also found, this papyrus, which is probably the most phenomenal discovery in the last 10, 20 years. Hello.
Joel.
I moved as well because I was worried that it was my reception.
No. It's here in Africa. The power goes out, comes back on, and then when it comes back on, even the cell signal dips. So we are back on. So
no worries. Okay, so now you've got a view of a huge plant and me.
Yes.
So that's my garden.
We have that same plant here in South Africa. I think we've got 2 in the front yard.
Yeah, it's a succulent. I love succulents. I've become a bit of a succulent nut since the lockdown. So, it's become my big thing in lockdown. Sorry?
We call them a speck worm here in South Africa.
Oh, yeah, I do like it. I mean, it seems almost impossible to kill, so it's just quite good.
They actually produce more oxygen than any other tree on the planet, so keep it.
Oh, cool. This one's in my father's bedroom, so that's good. I'll keep him going. So where were we? Because actually, the weird thing is actually the breakdown it came at a good time because we had a bit of a crisis on the shoot. That we're doing a big show over the next 2 weeks.
What happened?
A real live actual crisis, and basically, part of our role, we find the experts obviously, and we manage the relationship between the two parties, and the thing is that so they understand each other. They bring those two worlds together, right? The academic world and the media, and there can be a lot of misconceptions and how things work, and we try to help people through that process. And this project we're working on now, we had to find over almost 30 experts. So that's a lot of people to manage their expectations on both sides.
Is that the one looking for the local experts?
The local experts is a new thing because of COVID. I mean, people have used local experts before, and we do have quite a few, particularly in Egypt. We have on our books. Your story you mentioned, and Arto and others. And the good thing is actually the one thing that's kind of come out because of COVID is that obviously crews can't travel and this kind of thing, and also that means experts can't travel. So there are opportunities for local producers, local media people as well to make the shows, but there are also opportunities for local experts to be on the shows.
That's
so
excellent.
We've started a big, it's fantastic. So we've started a big recruitment drive to try and get more indigenous archaeologists on our books, and particularly in Egypt, Iran, and Turkey at the moment.
It's so important because, I mean, if Egyptians can see their own people interested in the history, they'll become more interested. Because I've seen numerous times when I'm there, some of the teenagers are just like, oh, we don't care.
Yeah, I think it's important to see their own people on TV. You know what I mean? It's there's a wonderful young archaeologist, Nora Sharkey, she's called, who's now like the sort of face of Egypt for Nat Geo. She used to actually work for us. She worked in the Past Preserves office really briefly as an intern 1 year, but she's lovely. She's absolutely delightful woman now, and she's really passionate about Egyptology. She's really passionate about engaging with the young people in Egypt, and it's just so good for them to see an Egyptian going around the world as an ambassador of Egyptology. It changes the game a lot, and that doesn't mean there's no place for foreign Egyptologists. There is, it's a huge discipline, and so there is room for everyone. But it's really important for the young Egyptians to see that. But one of the things I'm passionate about it, the kind of the thing that annoys me quite a bit about people's conceptions of Egyptians and Egyptology and their involvement with it and their understanding of it. To me, the Egyptians are strongly rooted in their past, incredibly strongly rooted in their past. And I really don't see this disconnect at Cleopatra, at the Arab world, and all these different divisions that Egyptology has made. And I've met obviously some Egyptians who are not particularly interested in history and that kind of thing, but I've met a lot of people in Britain who are not interested in history as well. But you kind of touch a nerve with the Egyptian and it's there, you know what I mean? If you're critical of, say someone else built the pyramids or something like that, then the nationalist comes out in them. And, their football team is called the Pharaohs, for God's sake. It's part of their psyche. They are the Pharaohs. They're not some foreign invaders. And I think it was Stephen Quirk who said, from UCL, who came up with this paper, I think, about, what is ancient Egypt? I mean, where is this place? Does it actually exist? It doesn't. It's a construct by the West. There's only Egypt. There's not ancient Egypt. There's not different divisions of Egypt. And the Egyptians who live in Egypt now are the descendants of those people. In any extent that we're all kind of mixed up as well. But it's not like all the ancient Egyptians suddenly got up and left with the Arab invasion. And that makes me, it gets me very passionate and very annoyed when Westerners do that and say that, the Egyptians are not interested in their past. There are a lot more pressing concerns for a lot more Egyptians than worrying about looking after the monuments. But for most of them, it's something deep inside, deep, very deep. Well,
yeah. See, Sandy has a question. No, don't go away. How do I get back there?
I don't know. Can you scroll up to get the question or not?
What is your experience recording the exact locations and conditions of artifacts uncovered in diggings or surveys, using drawings and photographs as necessary?
Well, that's not really me anymore. I've not been a field archaeologist for a very, very long time. When I worked in even the Valley of the Kings, my job was essentially writing the site management plan for the Valley of the Kings. So I did a certain amount of field work, but that was, recording numbers of tourists, recording the temperature and humidity. In the tombs, looking at conservation reports and doing historical surveys. So I haven't, in that sense, used my trowel in anger for some time. I still have my trowel. It's on my desk, but it never gets used. It's actually rusty.
Well, in lockdown now, you can dig in the garden. So
I could go and dig in the garden. I could. I'll do my, my stuff.
I remember you had a posting, and you were asking for archaeologists who are currently digging, and it was when lockdown just started. I was like, I can dig in my garden if you want me to.
Yeah, well, actually, there is a lot of archaeology going on. Actually, one of the things that's going on in Egypt is that Egyptians are doing all the archaeology for the first time. It's still going on. It hasn't stopped. There's this kind of idea that just because the foreigners left as well, that there's no archaeology. Well, it's not true. So, and I'm sure it's the same in most countries. There is archaeological projects still going on where people can, But,
Crystal has a question here. Do archaeologists get paid well? I'm just curious because I've always wanted to be an archaeologist, especially Egyptologist. No, we don't get paid anything.
No, it depends what you do. Obviously the key is specialization, and some I think do well, but academia is very competitive. Obviously, it's all very, very competitive. I was lucky in that we created this business and has that as a we've created a niche for ourselves. Lots of academics and lots of Egyptologists, archaeologists do work in the media as well as a kind of side gig. And I would say that's one of the things that we're talking about, managing sort of expectations, is that we have to, with people have to understand they're not going to make a lot of money doing this,
Exactly.
It can be relatively well paid. It can be something that you do alongside your normal day job, whatever that is. If you do it regularly enough, it would be a nice little income. If you become good at it and you become someone that the producers trust and also that you can deliver what they want as well, then you'll get regular work. But it's a very small world as well, this world of archaeology on TV and history on TV. So it's done by the same producers. So in many ways, one of the things that we try to manage is what's expected from the expert, what they have to do, what's expected on the actual show, and what they can and cannot do. We also say to them, if there are subjects they don't want to talk about and there are things they just don't want to go into or they don't feel comfortable, they have to say. They can flag that, of course, But at the same time, we sometimes get people who have unreasonable expectations of what they should be paid, and there is a natural ceiling for these shows, and you're not going to get more than that. It just doesn't happen,
Exactly. I see Nora is online. Hi, Nori.
Oh, hello, she's back. And Owen, who's I think it's Owen who is actually Owen's working for us at the moment as an intern, a virtual intern, if you can call it that, and working on development. So, hello, Owen.
Hi, Owen.
I think it's that Owen. It must be. It's the only Owen.
with Egyptology and history and things like that, yes, you can make money from it, but I think a lot of the times we do it because it's something that we enjoy. So it's not all about money. That's how I see it from my point of view.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously for a lot of people, it has to be something that pays the bills and stuff. There was actually a very good tweet by, I think he's called John Phillips, an archaeologist, who said the other day, archaeology has to become more than a hobby. You know what I mean? And obviously, for a lot of people, it is their job, and they should be paid reasonably well. Particularly people who do, say, field archaeology. The money's terrible. If you look at what they call the shovel bums in America, that do all the field archaeology. I mean, some of them are on minimum wage and they're living in tents and things, traveling around sites. And a lot of field work in like Egypt and stuff, a lot of people do it for nothing, just to get a place on the dig to say that they've worked in Egypt. And a lot of institutions really shouldn't be doing that. And that means only obviously the wealthy can do that, because how else can they go, afford to pay flights and live in Egypt for months at a time?
Exactly. I see Crystal also says here, also, what is your opinion on the new Grand Egyptian Museum? Because I honestly miss the old Cairo, the old Egyptian Museum of Cairo, and I'm so sad to see them transfer the old one. Crystal, they are still keeping the old one open with different.
Yes, eventually, but there is no perceived role for the old one yet. So, I mean, it will close at least for 3 years, is what I've heard, the latest, to be refurbished. So, 2 or 3 years, and then obviously it needs to have a role. But getting back to the Grand Egyptian Museum, I mean, that's an idea that's been around for a very, very long time. I think actually I read something recently that the idea goes back to the 60s, and Egypt wanted its own post-colonial museum. You've got to remember that museum in Tahrir was built by the French and it was run by the French. It's incredibly important. I feel strongly about it that Egypt has their own museum designed and built by them. And so I was always supportive of the Grand Egyptian Museum. I think Egypt should have the largest museum in the world. Okay, it costs 2 billion. Who cares? Make it 3 billion. It should be that kind of wow factor. My concern is that things like the royal mummies and stuff that are now allegedly moving to what's called NEMEC, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, which is another museum that was kind of planned because they didn't think GEM would happen. So it was like an intermediate museum. And that's actually finished, building wise anyway, but the problem is that people who visit Cairo, the majority of tourists, the average visit is about 2.1 days or something. They will not go to three major museums. And then you've got things like the Coptic Museum and other attractions, etc. Now, the gravity of Cairo is shifting towards Giza, right? So those hotels at Giza are being expanded massively because that's where every tourist will stay. The tourists will not stay downtown anymore. And business people will stay downtown. And so the thing is, they will not come in to either Tahrir, or they might visit Khan Khalili or something like that, of course, as a shopping expedition. But so I feel very strongly, and I know others do in Egypt and outside, that the royal mummies should go to the Grand Egyptian Museum. It doesn't make sense to have two different places. I love the idea of this parade through the town. I think that's it's unbelievably insane and wonderful. I think it's amazing because, a few years ago, I was flying in one night and there were, no, sorry. I was saying about the night they moved the statue of Ramses through the town from outside the train station. And the government didn't tell anyone. It wasn't a big deal. It was not planned, that thing. And literally tens and thousands of Egyptians came out on the streets. So it took all night to move it. And that's another example, another classic example of why Egyptians are connected to their past. They came out on their own. They dressed up as Ramses. They dressed up with pharaohs. They were on their balconies with flags and the rest of it. And So obviously, the Egyptian government now see that it would be a wonderful thing to have a parade when they move the mummies, and I think that is a fantastic thing. But I just think they're going to the wrong place.
I'm in two minds about that because I kind of like the idea that the mummies won't get so many people peering in on them. I mean, these are bodies of past kings and queens and things like that. And also, about 2 years ago, I was visiting the Egyptian Museum and I was looking at the mummy of Queen T. And there were kids walking up and they were banging the display case, and her whole body was shaking, and that case didn't look like it was humidity treated because there were pieces of her hair just falling out. You could actually watch and see the flecks falling off. And I actually spoke to, I believe it was Ray Johnson and also Salima Ikram, and I said, look, guys, you need to please step in because there's nothing I can do, but they can do something about it. So I'm in two minds. I think it's great that they are being preserved, but I can't see them. But, you know, there's a lot of ups and downs about it.
There is, but I don't think they'll get any. I mean, I think the visitors will, will go in probably the same sort of numbers. Got to remember that majority of people who go into the Cairo Museum did not go and see the royal mummies.
Yes.
It's something like, I think, 10% of visitors. It's like Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings. You know, we would get about 5% of the visitors to the valley would pay an extra price to go in and see him, And that's been an interesting debate as well, because obviously at one point they were talking about moving Tutankhamun himself up to the Grand Egyptian Museum to join his collection. And in so many ways, I thought, oh, that is wonderful. But it's also wrong. I think he should be definitely. I don't think he should be in that case that he is in on the side of his tomb. He should be put back in his sarcophagus or in the coffin or in something, not just lying there like that. But yeah, the people in Luxor made their feelings felt very strongly about any attempt to move him. And in fact, that goes back to the time of Howard Carter as well, when the British tried to remove him once before. There was an uprising against the British.
Yeah.
Leave him be.
But, exactly. Let him rest in peace. That's his tomb. He should be there. Anyway, I see Louis, son of Sekhmet, has a question. Any advice for young people interested in Egyptology but can't afford universities or museum classes?
There are occasionally, I mean, I don't know the names of them and stuff, but you do see online courses that are free. There are lots of people who do, various online courses and podcasts and this kind of thing. I think there is a lot of information out there. I think you have to be careful because there's also a lot of crazy stuff about Egypt out there. But yeah, there's lots of courses.
Something like Chris Norton's website, and he does some amazing lectures that I've attended a couple
of. Oh, right. Cool.
Really?
Yeah, and actually, one of the good things about this whole sort of time we're in now is that so many people have been doing online lectures and all that kind of thing. So I think there is a lot of information, and that people are sharing the information. I think obviously read as much as you can, and get to libraries. And actually, my old boss Kent Weeks, he's got a library down in Luxor now that's for aimed at the local people. It's not just Egyptology, it's lots of different things, but get to your library, support your libraries if you've got them. But yeah, there are some great online courses.
So we're just going to take a few more questions, and then I know you need to run as well. So Alan,
I've got my wine. I'm okay.
Alan asked, what is the drawback of having hobbyists in the field digging?
Again, not really my field. Obviously, I'm very firmly now in working in the media. So I don't believe there are any hobbyists, particularly in Egypt. It's incredibly difficult and incredibly competitive to work in the field in Egypt. I don't think anyone can just wander in. You do get a lot of people obviously writing their own theories and books about it, which of course you can't stop. But occasionally what is quite interesting is theories that sometimes come from the fringe. I'm quite intrigued by that as well, is what is labeled sort of fringe things. A couple of examples without references, but I also remember this idea that I think came from an engineer about how where the pyramids were actually situated, one after, each after a son and grandson, etc. And he came up with the fact that actually it was probably to do with the fact that the pyramid was a construction site and had to be cleared and would take probably, years to clear it up after the pharaoh died. And then, so the son, if he wanted to start building his pyramid immediately, would not be able to do that. And I remember that being very poo-pooed by a lot of people, and then eventually became, one of the theories of where, the pyramids were sited. And also there was this, God, I met this chap a few years ago at an event in London. Nigel Skinner Simpson is called, and he wrote this book with another chap called The Caves of Giza, which is essentially was ridiculed something terribly. I mean, really, really terribly ridiculed in the press. And he claimed there were actual natural caves under the pyramids and under Giza. And when we were doing Chasing Mummies, actually, he got in touch with me and said, you must film there, you must go, you must prove I'm telling the truth. And we said to Zahi,
you guys went in with Zahi.
We did, we went in, and Zahi was convinced that there was no thing. He said, but actually Zahi was confused about the location, because within that tomb, there actually is an entrance. It's on the edge of the escarpment, and there is an entrance also into some catacombs that were made in the late 21st dynasty, I think, animal catacombs. So Zahi thought the chap was talking about that. It turned out that at the back of this tomb, there is a bricked up section of the tomb, and they knock down the bricks for us, and you go through these bricks and you're into literally a natural cave system. And that is under Giza. So this guy that was considered, the most ridiculous, fringe theorist was proved correct. There are caves under Giza, but the thing is, it hasn't been researched. We don't know. We don't know what they're connected to. The tunnels, we went down as far as we could. We investigated the tunnels. They're full of bats. We found 2 tunnels off the main room, and each one had collapsed. So we don't know. They do not go towards the pyramid, though. They don't appear to go towards either of the pyramids. But the fact is they're natural, but they've been worked because there are steps cut into them. So obviously the pharaohs were aware of them. And it may have been the reason they actually selected the site, even, because then obviously that could be the realm of Osiris, etc., etc. So who knows what's down there? There could be statues. There could be, we don't know. And it's very dangerous. And as I said, it's collapsed and stuff. But there's been no investigation since then into those tunnels.
Yeah, but if
so
you
TV
look
sometimes
at like hobbyist Egyptologists, we get, for example, Katherine Martinez. She was a lawyer, and then she got so passionate about Cleopatra, she went to Egypt, got permits, got digging, and I believe, I'm not going to say the person's name, but someone described Katherine Martinez as, he said, she came out of nowhere, like no one had ever heard of her, and all of a sudden she was on the scene looking for Cleopatra. And she made
didn't Nefertiti come from nowhere as well?
Sorry?
Didn't Nefertiti come from nowhere? So there's a historical precedent for people appearing in Egypt, I think.
Exactly.
The thing is with
Katherine, about me, like, where did you come from?
The thing is with Katherine's done a lot of TV. We've worked with her before on TV shows. She is perfect for TV. They love her because she has a passion and she has a belief, and she is in very strongly believes she will find Cleopatra. So and she's
every time I see Kathleen on TV, I look at her and I go, yeah, you go girl, you find Cleopatra, you get her, you find her. Do it. Prove everybody wrong, because I understand where she's coming from, of that passion,
Yeah, exactly. And she must be the best dressed archaeologist, put it that way. Anyway, I mean, everything she does is kind of Gucci and stuff. So, and she does get a lot of criticism because she is not technically, I believe, a qualified archaeologist. But that every time we've ever visited her there, she has the most incredible teams. She has the best people in the business. She has wonderful, no, I mean, she really has the best archaeologists in the world working for her. So she gets the best kit, the best technology. So it's all done very proper. It's not like, I mean, even I kind of thought at first when I heard about it, yeah, well, what is going on there? But she does it well, what she's doing. But I ultimately, as I told the executive producers we work with on the show about her, is, they said, do you think she'll find her? Absolutely, categorically, no. She will not find Cleopatra. I mean, it's just, I don't think there's an Egyptologist in the world who thinks she will find Cleopatra or possibly Alexander the Great, but not, I mean, Cleopatra, for many, many reasons, would have either been, squiddled away by our own people.
In
sorry?
Alexandria. I think she's under the water in Alexandria in the bay.
I mean, if the Romans had found her obviously alive, she'd have been dragged to Rome. If they found her dead, they'd have disposed of her body. If she got away, then she
wouldn't have been mummified and all of that.
No, and it's an actually very interesting story in the terms of, Cleopatra. I did a whole paper on her when I was at college about the media's shaping the narrative there. And, if you look at the way we remember her is because of Shakespeare and Chaucer and because of Hollywood, and George Bernard Shaw and Elizabeth Taylor. It's nothing to do with the facts, nothing at all.
So I'm just quickly scrolling through some of the comments here. Nuri says, hey guys, you are missed. We miss you too, Nuri.
I'm coming back on the 19th, pending quarantine and God knows what else.
We've also got someone saying here, hi from Spain. Sorry, the name is so long it's cutting off. Hi from Spain. Why are you
doing these messages? That's weird. Oh, that's why I'd scrolled up.
Monford Schold. Cheers. Hi. Let me see if we have any more questions. Okay, yes. Who is your favorite pharaoh?
Favorite pharaoh. Well, for me, of course, it's got to be Akhenaten. I'm crazed about Akhenaten. It's Amana all the way for me. Yeah. I love him. I think he's amazing. I don't see him as a religious zealot or anything. I actually see him, and this is my pitch to TV companies. I actually see him as Henry VIII, and what he was doing was reasserting the power of the pharaohs over the priests, and he was literally redressing the balance, and he used whatever means he could have to do that. And if that meant moving to a new city and sacking the priesthood and declaring a new religion, that's what it was about. It was about money. Follow the money, as they say. Exactly. I think he's amazing, but I think he was egged on by Ai and Horemheb, who literally could not lose, right? If it went well, they got to be behind the pharaoh and whatever. If it went wrong, as we did, they took over. So yeah, wonderful. I mean, absolutely wonderful. We're talking to a production company at the moment about a drama based on Amana. So yeah, I mean, it's perfect for TV. There's so much intrigue. It's better than the Borgias, much better. And it hasn't been told. The focus is on Tutankhamun all the time, but we need to know who brought us Tutankhamun. They're the family that gave the world Tutankhamun. So we need to know more about them, right?
There's so many people who don't know who Akhenaten was. I mean, there's so many people who don't. They know Nefertiti, but they don't know her. And then you get with Nefertari, people confuse the two. And these things I think there needs, like you said, there needs to be this TV show. Show.
I mean, a drama where I think it needs really big money, like something like HBO made with Rome. It needs that kind of investment. It needs, I mean, there's a huge amount of obviously different ways you could go with it, but Egypt really hasn't, since the kind of heyday of Hollywood, hasn't really had any sort of good well done drama on it. Rome seems to get all of those. So I think it's time Egypt was back in the drama field, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as a
And more
filmmaker,
film.
you can hit me up anytime for that.
Sorry?
Said as a filmmaker, you can hit me up for that show anytime.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking to a really wonderful production company who does amazing stuff and have links to Netflix and others and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it would just be amazing if that came off. But it's early days. But we hope. I mean, that's one of the things that we've started to do a lot more now. Is we started to develop shows and work with our partners, not just people's projects and stuff, but you know, people's life's passion, you know. Someone so it's they've got a huge demand for stories and new shows. So instead of just bringing them the people, we would like to bring them the stories as well.
Yeah. Last question that we're going to take for tonight. Michelle, she says, hello from San Diego. Who do you believe was Tut's mother?
The woman that gave birth to him. I mean, I've no idea. And it's just, you know, it's just this whole thing of, you know, DNA this and DNA that and this mummy this. I mean, I think it's probably almost been corrupted now to the point where we unless technology changes, we probably won't find out. Yeah, there's been far too much intervention in that family so far. And I think maybe it just needs to be given a rest until technology, you know, can do something. If it hasn't already been corrupted, the DNA and everything. But you know, there's a huge amount of speculation about the family. One thing I don't think is the product of incest. I really don't. I don't think that. I think there's a misconception with ancient Egypt of these where there are brother-sister marriages and stuff. I think they were political. I don't think they're incestuous at all. So it's not something that they seem to. If they did, it would be much more prevalent. It would be throughout society rather than just the occasional royal thing. You know, I don't think there was. I think it was, as I said, political, and it was about power when someone was too young or too weak or something like that.
A lot of factors to it, so yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Ptolemies, it does seem to be there is evidence of incestuous relationships, but you know, again, I don't think it was probably quite as much as we like. I think people like that kind of element of it, you know, the sort of salacious side of it, so that gets focused on quite a bit.
They should look at more of in a political way, a religious way to connect with the story of, you know, Isis and Osiris, brother, sister, blah, blah. So
yeah, someone said it's his midwife now. I mean, it could be anyone, including Akhenaten himself, but, you know, I mean, if you look at the statues. But, you know, yeah, I mean, we know they use used wet nurses and stuff like that. So, I mean, you know, we know of different societies in the past where the royals did actually use people to carry their babies and stuff. So, who knows?
Yeah, Amenhotep III had a midwife. Ramses II had a midwife. So who knows? But I have one last question for you, because we know that you've worked with so many Egyptologists, archaeologists. What is the biggest misconception that people have about Egyptologists in general?
Egyptologists or Egypt? Egypt or Egyptologists?
Yeah, the people. I know a lot of people say, oh, they must be so boring, things like that. What is the biggest misconception you've heard?
Well, I suppose they kind of think that they're Indiana Jones, right? I mean, we do actually, and I'm not joking, we've had it more than once, had requests from TV companies for the real Indiana Jones and stuff. You know, yeah, they're not like that. They don't, yeah, I mean, a lot of them do wear funny hats, but, you know, they don't really run around with whips and stuff and fight Nazis. So I think, yeah, there's that kind of thing. I think people think it's a lot more glamorous than it is. You know, it's hard work and difficult conditions and things like that. But also people, particularly now, you're hearing from archaeologists that are stuck, say, back in their home countries and stuff, and they're really thinking about the wonderful experiences they've had, how lucky they were. I remember when we kind of used to go over to the Valley of the Kings in the morning because we would go and meet Dr. Weeks, whose boat was on the east side, and then travel over and sometimes stay on his boat. And it would be really early, and I'm not a morning person, and we'd be going across on the boat at say 6 a.m. or something to the Valley of the Kings, you know, having our coffee on the boat, and someone would be moaning or something, and probably me moaning about the time or whatever. And Dr. Weeks would say, we could be crossing Waterloo Bridge now, or you could be, you know, on a commuter train. And then you look around you and, oh my God, I'm on the Nile going to work, right? I mean, how unbelievably amazing is that? And you have to absorb the moment and get pleasure from it. And okay, fine, you can moan about the breakfast or whatever later on or whatever. But yeah, I've been incredibly lucky. I've been so lucky, and to be mentored by really amazing people as well, and given those opportunities to do things like that. So yeah, sometimes you have to look beyond the sort of inconveniences as well. Someone said, oh, I actually read a question. How can someone join your expert database? Basically, we have an online form that they can fill out. And I was explaining to someone actually earlier today, you know, you don't need to have a PhD. You can be any level of expert. We're looking for people who are just starting out in their careers, or people who are doing it as a new career like I did. Age is not a limit or anything like that. One of our most prolific TV regulars is Dr. Bob Bianchi, and there's the telephone, and he's done almost I think 103 now shows, and he's approaching 80 years old. So there really is no limit to age, and you can start as young as you want as well. We're always looking out for people who want to do TV. I mean, a lot of academics don't want to do TV as well. So obviously we're keen to get the ones who are interested and want to find out what it's like. And we can help them. We like to, you know, the thing is we like to also help them through the process. But yeah, back to the question is that you can sign up on the website. You only need a CV, a couple of pictures, but you will need a video. Obviously, we work in a visual medium. We work in TV, so people do need to see a video. Yeah. Someone says they'd prefer to cross the River Nile than Waterloo Bridge. Yeah, I would too. But actually, I mean, the view from Waterloo Bridge, it just depends on the weather, right? I mean, I do love London, and I do miss London a lot. Now I'm in the countryside. But I miss Egypt terribly. I can't wait to go back in October.
Tell me about it. Yeah, me too.
It's a special place, and I think it's one of those places that really does get into your psyche somehow. And even though when you're there, sometimes it can be frustrating, and you think, "Oh my God, I want to go home." The minute I'm back, it doesn't take long before I'm booking the next ticket.
Exactly. I see we've got some thumbs up from the profane Egyptologist. Hi, Sophia.
Oh,
hi.
Paul Harrison. Paul is a wonderful Egyptologist, and also Paul does media training for people. He discovered he liked training other people as well to do media that he worked on over the years, and he trains quite a lot of our people and offers online courses and everything. He's great. We love Paul.
I've watched some of Paul's videos on YouTube. Very entertaining. So.
Yeah, he actually did. Paul did something outside of his comfort zone as well. He did videos for Sega computer games, and not on Egypt at all. They asked him to, I think it was the Attila the Hun, and I can't remember the second one, but he wrote and actually presented short videos for their Total War series, I think it's called, a few years ago. But yeah, he's a very media savvy person. So we often use Paul for when clients want someone to have a bit more media training before a shoot.
Yeah. Anyway, I see we have a
Look,
lot
it's
of people
getting.
joining, but it's basically come to the end of our chat.
Oh, Paul loves us too. Thank you. Oh,
Thank you, Paul.
it's getting
Anyway,
dark here, which, one of the things I love about being in the north of England normally is the fact that in the summer it's light to really late in the evening, like 11 o'clock at night. But obviously we're coming to September now, so getting to autumn.
exactly. Well, we get dark here. We're still pretty much in winter, so we get dark at like 5
Right.
p.m. here. So
Oh, okay.
basically it's the first day of spring today, but you could have fooled me. It's like the middle of winter. Yeah. So anyway, thank
Cool.
you so much for joining us, Nigel. It was so great hearing your stories, letting people pick your brain with some of these really interesting questions. And
You're
yeah, I hope we
welcome.
chat soon.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions about joining up with us or working in the media, I think please email us. We're happy to arrange a chat and answer your questions.
Mhm. And if anyone's interested, they can find you on Instagram at Past Preservers, on Facebook at Past Preservers, and also the Past Preservers website. So you can all
Yeah,
go
of course.
check
Yeah,
out.
we're everywhere.
Anyway, thank you,
Lovely. Thank you
Sophia.
so
Thanks for
much,
joining.
Curtis. It was really nice.
Sophia, you're next. I think it's you or um,
Oh, yeah, you should have Sophia. And Paul. You need to get Paul, yeah, or whatever. That'd be cool.
Paul. Paul, I'm going to message you and then we can set up a live chat. How does that sound? Send a thumbs up,
Yeah.
please.
I'm sure we will.
Uh,
It's fantastic.
yes, so we've got
Cool. Right.
Sophia and then John Jay, and then, yes,
Ah,
so
John Jay. Yeah, John Jay is fabulous. Yeah.
we're going to be
Wonderful
discussing
speaker.
the death on the Nile and all of the remakes.
Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Then is that out yet, the new film or not?
It's not out yet, but I've seen the trailer and I was a
Oh.
bit shocked that they didn't shoot in Egypt.
No, most films don't, sadly, anymore.
I know.
Yeah, Egypt lost that business to Morocco and Tunisia probably 30 years ago because of the
Yeah.
bureaucracy and just basically how difficult they make it. Tunisia and Morocco realized they could be Egypt and many other places like Mars and all that stuff, and they make it so easy for filmmakers, and filmmakers
Even
love working with them.
South Africa gets
So,
used as Egypt so much. Um, the the ITV series about Howard Carter, I think it was a four-part
yeah,
series,
yeah,
that was shot
yeah.
in South
It
Africa.
was South Africa, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
What was the
yeah.
chap's name? The chap, he runs his own winery and that, the actor, doesn't he, in South Africa?
Oh yes.
Oh, oh God,
He was in the Mummies. What's his name?
I
Arnold
forgot.
Vosloo.
No, not that one.
Not that
He's an
one.
Australian guy, and I think he now lives in South Africa and he has a winery. But he was in the Tutankhamun thing. I know he follows me on Twitter, which is fantastic. Yeah, I can't remember his name now. He played Carter, I think.
Oh, Max Irons.
Max Irons. No, I'm thinking the older guy. Anyway, I'll come to us. Somebody will know. Come on, someone.
Sam Neill.
Yes, that's it. That's it. That's it. Yeah. So yeah, maybe it's not South Africa. Maybe he runs a winery back in Australia or something. But
I think he's
yeah,
New
he's
Zealand. Yeah.
he's in New Zealand. Oh, okay. Terribly insensitive. But he's famous as much famous now as for his wine as he is for his acting. So
Oh, I will have
mm.
to look up wine. I have not heard of that.
Yeah, it's very cool. That was a great show. I loved that. That was really good.
Yeah. Shot in South Africa. So, I mean, if you
Yeah.
need to shoot anything and you can't get into Morocco, you can't get into Egypt, come to South Africa.
Now, the terrible thing is being in Cairo as well is like I always thought being in Cairo that I would visit Africa more, right? I would visit more of Africa. I know that Egypt is in Africa, even though some people find that difficult to accept. But I never do, and it's so annoying. And I keep meaning, like, next time you're in Cairo, to get a flight somewhere else, to go. I would love to go to Botswana. People have really raved about that. South Africa, obviously
Living.
Kenya. and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of world to see, folks. A lot.
But Nigel, come
It's
visit
not.
in South Africa anytime. So
Yeah, I will. I'll come and stay with you. Okay.
exactly, perfect. And yeah,
Wonderful.
you can meet Harry.
Ah, he's so cute.
Makes it,
Ah,
as you can tell.
oh wow, gorgeous.
Thanks so much, Nigel. It was so great chatting to you and
Thank
everybody else
you.
who joined. And yes, Profane Egyptologist, I'm going to send you a message like right now. Um,
Cheers, everyone. Have a lovely evening and get in touch.
thanks. Thank you so much,
Thank
Nigel. We'll
you.
chat soon.
Bye.
Bye.